So here we have the formula for friction right here. It's mu, this Greek letter, times the normal force. One of the most important things first to realize is friction is a reactive force. So if you're just standing on the ground and not trying to drag your feet forward or backwards, there won't be any frictional force. But in your downswing, we know to create torque or rotational force, we're trying to drag our trail foot away from the ball. And if our foot stays still and doesn't move away from the ball, it's that reactive frictional force that's going to shove our trail hip forward and create the rotation in our golf swings. And so how do we get friction? Well, we need both of these things. We need a mu and we need a normal force. Mu is a measure of the two surfaces that are in contact. So most golfers will try to alter mu by getting a better pair of shoes or a different spike pattern on the bottom of their shoes. And all these things are going to create more friction and hopefully allow us to not have our trail foot slip. The only problem is we can have the best shoes in the world if we don't also have a normal force that's going to not allow us to create friction and allow our foot to slip. So really important we understand not just getting better shoes, but how to create more normal force. And what is the normal force? The normal force is basically the force of the ground pushing back up on your foot. And so as your foot pushes down into the ground, the normal force is going to push back up into your foot and create that normal force. And so the harder we can push down, or the more pressure we can create between our foot and the ground, the more normal force we can create, and therefore the more friction we can create. And so you can see in this particular example, if this is the golf ball here and this is the golfer's trail foot, they're producing an applied force where they're trying to drag their foot back away from the golf ball. And it's that frictional force or that reactive force that is pushing forwards and creating that reaction of the trail hip rotating towards the ball, creating rotation in the downswing. So we have to make sure we have this normal force to create friction. And we're going to show an example here where that frictional force is lacking and the trail foot does slip. So here we have an example of a golfer who has their trail foot slip in their downswing. This swing was measured at the Evolution Golf Academy, Tyler Miller's facility in Murrieta, California. And this is Brian Carlson, one of the teachers at this facility. So we were working on this swing on the Swing Catalyst 3D motion plate. And if you see on this particular swing, his trail foot is going to slip away from the ball right there. So if we slow it down a little bit, you could see kind of right in transition in the early downswing, that trail foot slips away from the ball, and that produced a very inefficient strike on this particular golf shot. So what I want you to notice is if we take him to the top of his backswing here in early transition, he gets 79% of his pressure into his lead side, almost 80% of his pressure into his lead side, and he's still at the top of his backswing. That doesn't have a lot of pressure into his right foot, which means there's not a lot of normal force in his right foot, which means there's not a lot of friction. Even though his Air Jordan golf shoes are probably giving him a lot of mu or a lot of coefficient of friction, without the normal force, that can create his back foot slipping. And so you'll see here that as the torque force ramps up with not a lot of pressure on the trail side, that is a recipe for the trail foot slipping. And so if you see here, we worked on things, and this is a slightly different swing, where when we take him to the top of his backswing here, we see a much different pressure pattern here. So you can see here, he's about 50-50. So now as that torque force ramps up, there's enough normal force between his foot and the ground, and his trail foot does not slip. So again, if you're having trouble with your trail foot slipping in your downswing, you just want to keep a little more pressure backwards as you make your transition, and that can allow, or a little more pressure on your right foot, that can give you enough friction to keep your trail foot from slipping and allow you to hit some efficient golf shots.